Good morning, independents. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about how independent voters and independent candidates will get rid of gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is the process that comes up every 10 years when a census is taken and the populations change, and then the state legislature gets to decide where to draw new district lines. And you've probably heard of it described as, instead of the voters choosing their representatives, the representatives choose their voters. And the way it works is that the majority party will try to draw lines of districts that are favorable to them by either concentrating the votes of the opposing party so that all of their voters are put into districts that minimize the total number of representatives that they have. And they will try to spread out their voters through multiple districts so that they have a majority in those districts and end up getting more representation than they should. So let's just go through a really quick example here. We have 50 blocks, and let's just assume that each one of these blocks represents 1,000 people. So you can see that we have 30,000 blue and 20,000 red. If we were to divide this up into 5 representatives, it should turn out that 3 of the representatives end up blue and 2 of the representatives end up red. There are multiple different ways you could draw district lines to change the number of representatives for each party. In this example here, we've drawn the line straight up and down. So it actually turns out that we get the correct number of representatives. We end up with 3 blue and 2 red, just like we should. But let's say the blue party was in charge of redistricting at the time when the census is taken. What they might try to do is increase the number of blue seats from 3 to more than 3. And if they were to draw the lines like this, horizontally, that is what actually would happen, because you can see here that in none of these 5 districts does red hold a majority. So in this case here, you're going to end up with 5 blues and 0 reds. But what happens if the red party is in control of the legislature at the time redistricting is done? They might try to increase the number of red seats to overrepresent what the population is. And they could use this scenario where they pack a bunch of the blue voters into just 2 districts, and then they spread out their red voters to just barely have a majority in 3 of the districts. So as you can see here, this district ends up being red, this district ends up being red, and this district ends up being red. Because a big percentage of the blue voters are packed into these 2 very strangely shaped districts on the far right-hand side of the map. So in this case, we end up with 3 reds and 2 blues. This shouldn't ever happen, and the only reason it does is because we have 2 political parties that are at war with each other, and every time the redistricting comes up, they try to gerrymander the districts to their advantage. What happens if all of a sudden a huge percentage of the voters in the district are registered independents and they're not registered Democrats or Republicans, and their votes swing depending on who they think is the best candidate at the time? And what happens if there's an independent candidate that can appeal to both blue and red voters? Now, instead of having these numbers, you're not even going to have red and blue representatives. You're going to have representatives of districts, and you can't categorize them because they are independents. So the point I'm trying to make is the more independent voters we have, the more people who go to the California Secretary of State website and undeclare their party, the less gerrymandering we're going to have. And the stronger independent representatives we have running, the less gerrymandering is going to matter, because even if they make a district like this, it's not going to matter. California's 10th district is historically a very blue district. In the 2022 election, the incumbent Democrat got 79% of the vote. And it was actually a Green Party candidate that was the other one who made it through the primary. So we had a Democrat and a Green Party candidate running against each other in the last 2022 general election. A Republican didn't even make it as the top two in the previous primary. So I'm trying to run as an independent candidate to show that no matter how blue or red a district is, if there's a candidate that has mass appeal to both sides of the spectrum, they can win the district, and they will end up being a better representation of everyone in the district than a partisan Democrat or a partisan Republican. So that's the lesson for this morning. I'll be creating a short with gerrymandering and independence, obviously. And this afternoon, I'm going to catch up on posting all of the recent 99 Days to Super Tuesday videos to the website, as well as doing some other campaign work that I will tell you about. That's all I have for this morning. I'll see you later. Good evening, Independents. I just wanted to clarify one point about the gerrymandering that I brought up this morning, because I know if I don't, someone will correct it for me and they'll say, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And that is the fact that California does have an independent commission that is in charge of drawing the districts for both the state and, as of 2010, the federal congressional districts as well. But the point that I was trying to make is that gerrymandering is a result of political influence from the parties. They're trying to get more seats than the other. And the very makeup of California's commission doesn't mean that politics are not involved. In fact, they are directly involved, because according to the rules of picking the commission members, you have to have 5 registered Democrats, 5 registered Republicans, and then 4 that are not registered under a party. So by the very nature of that, there is politics involved, and there's going to be jockeying against each other within that commission. Although the idea is that by having a diverse and relatively equal representation between the 2 major parties and then independents or no party affiliation, that the gerrymandering will be less. But even within that process of selecting the members to be on this commission, the California legislature is actually involved in part of that process. It's a really long, complicated process. And at the end of it, we're supposed to have something that is not as partisan and is going to gerrymander less. And I do believe that having the independent commission, as opposed to a state legislature, do the redistricting is better. And California is one of 8 states that has appointed an independent commission. But as I said before this morning, the main point I was trying to get across is that the more independent voters you have and the more independent candidates running, the less the redistricting and gerrymandering is going to matter anyways. So I think I'm going to make another law called the Law of Redistricting that says the more independent voters and the more independent candidates, the less redistricting matters. Just thought of that off the spot. I'm going to do a short about that one too. That's all I have for this evening. I'll see you tomorrow.